Hey everyone, it's Charlie Morgan here, and in this video I'm going to explain how to make more money, become more successful, get more freedom, and get more of what you want by actually doing less. Now that sounds paradoxical because in this day and age everyone seems to preach work hard, work long hours, you need to suffer for success. And that's true, and there's merit in that. However, you know that phrase, you shouldn't work hard, you should work smart? Well, really you should do both of those things, but in this video I'm going to explain how to work smart. And I've studied lots of billionaires and lots of conquerors and lots of very successful people. And I've realized that they have a common theme in their behavior and how they get these incredible exponential results. And so what I'm going to do in this video is explain how those people have used a specific set of tools to massively increase their productivity and basically get more by doing less. And I've been implementing this and practicing this in my business for the last couple of years. And this has made me more than $10 million a year online. And this has made me super rich and super successful. Anyone that says they're super successful should be shot against a post in my opinion. But in the eyes of the average person, you could say 8 figures is somewhat successful. You know, in the eyes of people who are more successful, probably not. But you get the point. What I'm going to do is explain how to do this and how it works. And really, it all relies on a diagram that looks something like this. Now, if you know what this diagram means, and if you understand the nature of this diagram before I've explained it, then you get some brownie intelligence points. But if you don't know what these two triangles mean, then you're missing out on one of the wonders of the world. And if you understand how it works, you'll make a ton of money. So let's reason from first principles here. And before I get into this diagram and explain how it works, we need to understand something about you. And that is that if you want to, becoming successful is about putting cause to effect. It's about using your energy and your time to work on things and take actions that ultimately cause a result. The entire universe is governed by cause and effect. That should seem and be pretty obvious. If I, for example, move this whiteboard marker up here, like that, I have cause and effect, right? I have created an effect I want. If I draw a circle here, I've caused an effect. I've used my physical body and I've used my mind to exert some level of force or power on an external object, and by doing it, I've created something. And so when you're doing business, and when you're doing work, you need to isolate the things that you need to work on that by doing, create the effect you want. And so the easiest example of this is if you want a client, if you want a customer, well then maybe you need to do a cold call. Or maybe you need to do, 1,000 cold calls. And so what we're looking to do in business is we're looking to be extremely rational in our thinking. We're looking to strip away emotion, and we're looking to define the actions and the volume of those actions required to achieve the volume of the output we want from the business. And this is just simple thinking. This isn't anything groundbreaking. This is just a first principle that we're going to start with. And so if I know that to get one customer, I have to make 1,000 cold calls, then all I need to do is just do 10,000 cold calls if I want to get 10 customers. And this is just cause and effect. And so if this is the effect that I want, if this is the goal I have, which is to get 10 customers, well, I can now isolate the cause that creates that, and then all I have to do to become successful, in my eyes, to achieve my goal, is this here. So what we're going to be doing in this video is talking about how to isolate what to work on. Because working smart isn't about necessarily being super intelligent or being smart. It's about being able to isolate the things that move the needle the most and where you have the most leverage. And so let's start with that idea. So leverage is a term used to describe essentially power, and I don't mean tyrannical force or like kingly power or anything like that. I'm talking about it's where you can basically pull a lever to move something. And this is once again using cause and effect. So for example, in my business, my YouTube channel has a lot of leverage. My goal is to become a billionaire, okay? And one of the things that's going to give me the most leverage to achieve that goal is having an audience, at least in this day and age. And so what I'm doing by making this YouTube video is I'm focusing on an action that has extreme leverage. And so the way you measure leverage is if you've got a goal up here and you've got, let's just say these different circles here represent actions, right? We've got action 1, we've got action 2, action 3, action 4, and action 5. Okay? Now action 1, the thing is these actions here, they're going to have varying levels of movement towards the goal. And I'll just make this one a little bit bigger for you. Okay? So action 1 might move me this close to my goal. Action 2 might move me this close to my goal. Action 3 might move me this close. Action 4 might move me this close. And action 5 might move me this close. And so different actions in your business, different causes, are going to create different levels of effect to achieve what you want. And so, for example, I would focus on action 5. If my goal is to make $1 billion, well, let's say that action 1 is, I don't know, making, this could be doing, I don't know, what do people do? Like action 1 could be like doing an Instagram story, like spending my entire day, like getting everything ready and just doing like one Instagram story. Well, it might move me to the goal a little bit, but not that much. Action 2 could be, doing my accounting. Or action 3 could be, talking to someone in my network. Like these are things that might move me towards my goal, but my job is to isolate the thing that has the most leverage, the thing that requires the least amount of energy and time to get the biggest output. And this is where we come back into the diagram that I showed you earlier. Because if this stick man here represents you, well, what are you as a person? Well, really, we won't get into that. That's a pretty existential question. But what do you have to use? Well, you have energy and you have time. These are the two things that you have been given. Okay? This is all you have. You might think, I've got a home, I've got a family. Yeah, sure. Those extensions of the ego, whatever the hell that is. But really all we have at first principle is energy and time. And so what we need to realize as business people is that these two things here are our most finite resource, energy and time. This is all we've got. And so you need to learn to protect these things. But what you can do is you can use these as a currency to bargain with the universe to essentially buy what you want. And so where this comes in, if I draw this diagram for you here, and let's actually get to the point. So if we have an axis here represents result, and here represents expenditure. So expenditure is basically energy and time. And results, let's just call this money, or whatever you want to achieve in life. This is the dollars. So this here is called an asymmetry. And an asymmetry is basically, it's a mental model or a phenomenon used to describe leverage. And what this means is we're putting in...
A factor situation that is observed to exist or happen, especially one whose cause or explanation is in question.
Thank you, Siri. That scared the life out of me. Basically, we're looking to put in the least amount of energy and time possible to achieve the biggest result possible. So I can give you an example. This is very abstract, right? It's very sort of ideated. So let's think of an asymmetry in real life. I'll give you a couple of examples. One example I can give you is you might get the Carolina Reaper hot pepper, or a ghost chili pepper, or whatever the hell they're called. And if you eat a tiny, tiny piece of that pepper, which is very small expenditure, a very small bit of the pepper, you'll get extreme pain. In contrast to if you ate like a bell pepper or something like that. Or likewise, you could be on the bus or on public transport or whatever, and you could be talking to some random stranger. And you might spend all of 2 minutes talking to them. So very, very little energy and time invested into that conversation. But it might turn out that that person could be your spouse, or that person could give you your dream job, or that person could introduce you to another person who gives you exactly what you want. And so what we're looking to do in business is we're looking to find actions that require the least amount of time and energy, but give us the biggest result. And if you're wondering, well, what is the result? What does this look like? Well, it's really just your goal. And if you're wondering what this is, well, it's obviously just your energy and time. And so what can I focus on today that doesn't require too much energy and time, but moves me really closely towards my goal? An example of this for me right now is this YouTube channel. So I'm going to spend, I don't know, like an hour or whatever on this video. And by doing that, I might reach 100,000 people. And I might get maybe a couple of thousand new subscribers, and people are going to share it. And then I'm going to build more goodwill with my audience and my market that I'm later going to cash in on when I have something to sell. Okay? And so that's an extreme example of asymmetry, where I can put in, maybe like an hour and maybe like 300 calories of my energy expenditure, because you just want to learn, it's thermodynamics, right? You're just measuring it in terms of calories and time. I can put an hour of my time and 300 calories into this video, which is not a very large expenditure at all. And what can happen as a result of that is I could book, I don't know, let's just say I booked like 300 sales calls from this video if it did really well. It might not, but let's just say I booked 300 sales calls, which means I'm going to conduct 150 sales calls, and maybe I'll get off the back of that like 30 clients. And those 30 clients, well, they might be worth, $300,000, which is kind of what they would be worth. So I can spend an hour of time and 300 calories and make 300 grand. This is an asymmetry. This is why I do YouTube. It's the most asymmetrical activity that I think I could ever find in my business. Now, another example I can give you in business that will actually help you solidify this and understand it is making YouTube ads. So, I run YouTube ads. You might have seen some of them. Sorry about that. And I might have to sit down every month and re-record new hooks, new body copy, etc. And doing that might take me, 2 hours. And it might take me, once again, a couple of hundred calories to burn for me to actually think that through and to do it and to expend my energy. But what might happen is, I might be able to, by doing this, by spending more time, a couple of hours or a couple of calories on these ads, I might be able to go from having a $200 cost per call, cost per strategy session, which means that it costs me $200 to book an appointment through ads. And just by making these new ads, it might reduce my cost per strategy session down to $175. Now that might not seem like a lot, but let's just say it's $150. So we've had we've knocked 25% off of this. So by doing this, by doing this small action here, small investment of time and energy, I'm saving 25% on my ad spend. Well, this is kind of insane because this means that my ads are now 25% more profitable. Ceteris paribus, everything else staying the same except from that, of course. So I can be 25% more profitable in my business, or at least in the main system that drives traffic through my company. So this would probably increase my profit margin by, 10 to 15%. And if I'm doing about $1 million a month, which is sort of where I'm sat right now, then this is an extra 100K to 150K per month for 2 hours of work. And so this is how you have to learn to think, is in business, you've got a goal, and there's 101 different things that you can do to achieve that goal. You can wake up tomorrow and there's 101 different things, maybe that's arbitrary, but there's plenty of things, maybe 10, 20 different things that you could work on today that might make you feel productive and might make you feel as though you're, doing what you want and working towards your goal. But really, if you learn how to think like this, and you learn how to leverage asymmetry, you'll destroy everyone. Because what's going to happen is, if you take all of your energy and time and you put it into things that give you extreme leverage, then you're going to demolish everyone. And I don't really know how to solidify this point beyond the diagram and the explanations. But I can give you some more examples. I'll just keep going with the examples just to solidify this and bring it home. So I can give you another example recently of what I've done to get some more asymmetric leverage out of the business and out of myself. So I've been, recently, I've spent a lot of time reading, and I read Napoleon's biography. Okay? Napoleon biography. Now this it's called Napoleon, A Life by Andrew Roberts, and it's like an 800-page biography. So this thing took me a long time to read. This might have taken me, 50 hours, if I'm guessing, maybe more than that. So I'm just going to put here 50 hours. Cool. So this thing took 50 hours, and I don't know how many calories it takes to read a book, but you get the point. I'm going to give you an example. And let's say it took, 7,000 calories. And by the way, when I say calories, I do mean this, because thinking, making decisions, and doing things just with your brain, your brain consumes something crazy, 33% of your calories. And so yeah, I might actually mean calories in this sense. So that it's not quite biologically accurate, but you get the point. It's like you wake up every day and you have a certain number of units of energy to use, and obviously a certain number of hours in the day, and you need to be those are the only two things you've got. That's all you've got to work with. And if you don't learn to think like this, you're screwed. So this took me 50 hours to read and 7,000 calories. But the result of reading this book is like I guess you could say a standard. So by reading Napoleon's biography and spending this time and energy, I'm now holding myself to, like, my level of contrast is significantly greater. So what I mean by this is when you read great people, and when you study great people, you naturally compare yourselves to them. And so the issue that I was having in my life, to be candid and honest with you, is my unconscious would, like, you can't help doing this, okay? You have an unconscious mechanism in your brain that's connected to your serotonin system, and it's a status measurement. You measure your status against other people that are like you. Unconsciously. The whole idea that you shouldn't compare yourself to other people, yeah, sure, it sounds good and virtuous to say, but it's bloody impossible to do it in practice because your entire brain is dedicated to measuring your status against other people. And how neurotic or emotional or anxious or depressed you are heavily depends on this status measuring system. And so the problem that I was having in my life was I got to the point in this online space where I was making $1 million a month. You know, in terms of the online consulting sort of online business industry, you're pretty damn high. You're nearly at the top of the pyramid at that point if you're doing 8 figures. That's like you've completed the game in that regard. There's obviously more room to grow. Like you can get to 20 mil a year, 30 mil a year, but when you're at that point, you are in the top 1% of the 1% of the 1%. So you're top 0.00001%, whatever. And so the problem I was having is I felt comfortable because my status machine, like I was just comparing myself to people that I know who make like 100 grand a month or 2 million a month or 3 million a month. And my ability to garner resources was greater than theirs. And so my brain was just naturally like, yeah, we're good. You got status, you can chill out, you can relax. And when that happens, your business starts to plateau and you just sort of stop growing because the status thing is kind of what drives the whole thing. And so what I did is I started reading conquerors. So I read Genghis Khan. I read Caesar, I read Alexander the Great, I read Napoleon. It took a long, long time. I'm kind of addicted to them now. I can't stop reading biographies. But now by doing this, my standard has been raised. So my serotonin status system has been thrown into chaos, where now I actually want to work and I've got this ridiculous biological imperative drive to work because the only people that I'm really exposing myself to or looking up to or learning from are people that are so far ahead of me that it's incomprehensible. And this is an example of asymmetry because it took me, about a month of reading or whatever to read this book. And it took me a lot of energy to read this book and it's quite exhausting to read biographies. But now my standard for what I should be and what is actually possible to achieve is so greater than what it was before. And this is an asymmetry because the only goal you can achieve and the only result you can get is A, one that you think is possible, and B, one that you actually want to hold yourself to. And those two things are heavily dependent upon what you expose yourself to. And so when I'm exposing myself to people who have literally conquered the world, and I look at myself and think, God, I've just made like a couple of $1 million online, or $20 million online, whatever, it pales in comparison. And so you want to learn to look for asymmetries. I'll try and give you some more examples as well of other things that I've been focusing on. I can give you a perfect example. I can give you a really good example. Now, this might not apply to your current situation, but it will as you want to grow and scale. So I can tell you a story of a guy called Sam Evans. Some of you might be familiar with him. So I was talking to Sam a while ago, and Sam runs School. You might be familiar with School, SKOOL. And I was talking to Sam, we were having a chat, and we were talking about asymmetries, because I actually learned this from Sam. And Sam spent 18 months. He spent 18 months of his time. That's a pretty damn big investment. Like, I'm talking like every day, 18 months of his time on interviews. Oh, I can't even spell interviews. Specifically for a chief technical officer, CTO, or like a technical co-founder, so to speak. I think a technical co-founder is probably a better word. And so Sam spends 18 months, this is the guy who's built School, who's like going to be probably the next big social media platform. It will be valued at billions of dollars without question. So So Sam spends 18 months on interviewing people and interviewing technical co-founders. And that's like, this is the thing that people, when you explain asymmetry, the second layer to it is it's not about spending little time and energy. It's about getting a disproportionate reward or result for your time and energy. So it's all about the contrast of these two things. So you could spend 10 years doing something, but if the result of doing that was worth way, like huge reward, then there's still asymmetry. So don't think that this is about spending as little time and energy as possible on something. It's about isolating something that you can spend time and energy on that gives you the highest return and the highest reward. And then it becomes an asymmetry. And asymmetries work on a scale of contrast where you could spend 18 months interviewing technical founders to find your CTO. And basically, by doing this, Sam builds like the best product. And by building the best product, he can basically just build a monopoly and capitalize on everything. And that's kind of what he's done. And so this is an asymmetry. You spend 18 months, it's a long time, but it's still not a lot of time in contrast to the result of having the best product compared to your competitors. And so now School runs like a well-oiled machine. It's one of the best platforms. It's the simplest, it's the cleanest, there's no downtime. And I advocate for it. I love the thing. And so this is an example of asymmetry. It's a lot of time investment, a lot of energy investment, and I'm sure it wasn't that fun for Sam to do this. Because I know he's not a huge fan of talking to thousands of people, but he did. And now he's got this massive asymmetry. I can give you another example of what this has done for me recently. I'll keep going with some examples. So where you're at in your business right now, I'll try and make this more applicable to you. If you're doing, I don't know, like a high ticket service, or you're trying to like sell consulting or an agency service or something like that, then really the point of where you've got the most leverage is probably going to be sales calls. Because if you want to make money, and as much money as possible, well, what is like the most straightforward action to doing that? Well, it's talking to a human being on the phone. And so, one sales call might cost you 1 hour of time and, we'll just say 300 calories or whatever. You get the point, right? That much energy. But then you might make, $10,000 from one sales call, or you might make $5,000. Now, once you isolate this, and you've isolated that sales calls are the most important thing, which they are if you're still starting out, why would you do anything but this and getting this? Because the other asymmetry is going to be getting these sales calls so you can actually, get on the phone and talk to people. But it baffles me with entrepreneurs that you found something where you can put 1 hour of time in and only a couple of hundred calories and make 10 grand. Why would you, like literally, once I figured this out in my business, all these years ago, this is all I did. I would wake up and I would just do sales calls. And I had systems to book them, and that was fine. And that's the other asymmetry. If you haven't got sales calls, then the asymmetry is booking sales calls, right? But once you figure out how to spend 1 hour to make $10,000, you have no business doing anything else. Like, why would you do anything else? And then eventually the other asymmetry comes to hiring a sales rep to do more sales calls for you. Now, the biggest asymmetry in a business is always the sales call. It's where the most value and leverage lies. The other value, there's really 3 points of asymmetry, okay? And I'll draw these out. There's 3 things that you should be focusing on that if you're not, you're in trouble. So we've got asymmetry here. This is asymmetry number 1. We've got asymmetry here, which is asymmetry number 2. And we've got asymmetry here, which is asymmetry number 3. Can you guess what these 3 things are? This here is booking calls. This here is conducting calls. And this here is delivering value. These are the 3 asymmetries that you have in your business. Getting people to schedule appointments or getting traffic, because you might be doing e-commerce. Conducting calls, conducting sales calls, or converting that traffic if you're doing e-commerce. So for example, if you have like a low ticket school community, booking the calls is getting people to the actual platform, conducting them is converting them, whatever. And then the third point of asymmetry is value delivery. If you're an entrepreneur and you're waking up every day and you're not focusing on one of these 3 things, what are you doing? Like, yes, okay, there's other ones. Building a team, building the culture in a team. The chances are is you don't have to worry about that right now. If you're not making 100 grand, you can get, if you can't get to 100 grand a month on your own, you're doing something seriously wrong. Unless you're like running an agency, you need media buyers and stuff like that, sure. But you can get to 10, 20, 30, 40, 50K a month as a one-man show. And I know that that's true because I've done it in multiple business models myself. And so when you get up in the morning, you need to understand that you have like a, where can I draw this? Can you see this here? Probably not. When you wake up in the morning, you have 2 meters. And these meters are kind of like, you see those cringy water bottles that people have that encourages them to drink water? And it's like, they get to the bottom, it's like, keep going, and girls have them, and it's kind of weird. Well, you have a meter for energy, and you have a meter for time. And what happens as you go through the day is time naturally goes down here. You start, and let's just visualize this as one of those cringy water bottles that encourages people to drink water because they're so incompetent. You start, at the start of the day, you have your energy and time levels up here. Now, if the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning is you start scrolling through TikTok, and then you start like watching like whatever, and then you start texting people, well, what's going to happen is it doesn't matter what you do, as you go by, your energy and time is going to slip by. And so every hour, or really every minute or every second, what's happening here is this water level is just reducing and reducing. And so if you spent the first couple of hours, and by the way, the first couple of hours here in your energy and time water bottle every day, these are the most valuable ones. Because this is when you're at your most sharpest, it's when you're at your most focused. And so the first thing you do in the morning should be the main thing that you need to do anyway, which should be one of these 3 things regardless. But what's going to happen as you go through the day is these resources are just going to deplete. And so it doesn't matter what you do, it doesn't matter what you focus on, you're just going to start going down. Now, sometimes there are certain actions that require a lot more energy. For example, if I make a really long program video or a really long YouTube video, that's going to expend a lot of energy, and I might have to go and sit and just stare at a wall for like 2 hours afterwards. But you get the point. This is an abstraction, but you're waking up in the morning, and what you need to learn to do is take these levels and take this water, so to speak, and pour it onto these 3 things. If you're an entrepreneur and you're waking up in the morning and you're working on stuff that isn't booking calls, conducting calls, or delivering value to your clients, or figuring out how to get more calls, figuring out how to convert better, or figuring out how to deliver value better, then you're screwed. By the way, the biggest point of leverage in a business is usually this one here. If you want to build a competitive advantage and just annihilate everyone, it's hard to compete with people on booking calls and conducting calls because this is quite easy. Once you figure this out, it's pretty simple. I know that right now you might be struggling with it, but this is the thing that's tricky, is actually getting people results. And the more results you get people, the easier these 2 things come. So really, if you want to focus on booking calls and conducting calls, you just have to get people results. Because the better you are at doing this, the more social proof you have, the more conviction you have, the better your offer can be, all of this good stuff. And this asymmetry, it feeds back into these 2 here. Because if you've got a sales team that doesn't believe in what you sell, you're not going to do very well on these calls. And likewise, if you've got, like, for example, I've got nearly like 100 client interviews. If you go to my website, imperiumacquisition.com, and you imperiumacquisition.com, and you go to the results page, it's a never-ending scroll. We've got so many examples of being able to deliver value that everyone wants to book a call with us, and we're often oversubscribed. And my problem has always been having too many bloody appointments. And the reason that's the case is because I achieved that through obliquity. Obliquity is a mental model used to define achieving something through its opposite, its inversion. And so everyone who's focused on booking calls and trying to get appointments, they're so focused on booking appointments that they forgot to deliver value. When if they just delivered value, they'd have all the resources they needed to book calls. They'd have all the conviction they needed to book calls. They'd have the offers they needed to book calls. Prime example, when I say to people, hey, you need to have a refund offer, and they're like, I don't want to do that. It's like, well, why would anyone want to buy from you? If you don't have the confidence to offer a refund, why should anyone have the confidence to offer an investment towards your thing? So the energy and time over time will just drop. And this is basically over the course of a day. And what's going to happen here is you're going to get to the end of the day and it'll be like 7 p.m. or whatever. And then you've depleted your time and energy. And really, this is how you need to look at your days. Every day you have a responsibility where it doesn't matter what you do or whatever you focus on, these 2 things are going to be gradually depleted until there's nothing left at the end of the day. And then when you sleep, what will happen is this tank will refill. And it will get back to the top here. And then it will drain again, then it will repeat. And you could look at that in the micro level, like in the day or the minute or the hour, or you could look at it in the decade or your entire life. But all you have is this. So you must protect it. Like, when you start to think like this, you recognize, okay, there's a quote from Napoleon that I'll give you in a second. When you start to recognize this, you feel very irresponsible wasting your energy and time. There's a quote from Napoleon. And what Napoleon used to do is he'd have like banquets and dinners and stuff socially, but he used to eat with his family in his house, in his big mansion somewhere. And he'd eat for exactly like an hour with his family, with Josephine and his kids and stuff like that, whatever. And there's a quote from Napoleon where he gets up to leave the dinner table because it's been like a half an hour, or whatever's elapsed, a small period of time has elapsed for a dinner. And he gets up to leave and his family try and say to him, oh, you should stay and talk to us. And he said something along the lines of like, it would be a crime against the empire for me to stay here. And what he meant by that is that's verbatim, right? I'm not sure the exact quote, but what he meant by that is his time and energy is so important, and there's so many other things that he can focus on other than talking to his family, which is kind of savage, that to him it's a crime, it's injustice to spend these extremely finite and valuable resources on anything but an asymmetry that's like invading Poland or something. He wouldn't do it. And this is a common theme that I've found studying lots and lots and lots of successful people, is they massively value their time and energy, and they really value their these resources. And I thought that was quite interesting. Like, saying to your family, it's a crime against the empire for me to stay here for any longer than I already have, because you've got things to focus on that to you are more important than your family. You could argue that's morally unjust. You could argue that all the conquerors are morally unjust, but it doesn't mean that you can't learn lessons from them. And you see this everywhere in all sorts of people who are successful. You might have noticed if you've been watching my videos for a while, all I wear is black t-shirts, because I don't want to have to spend any energy or time in the morning thinking about what to wear. Or, it's the same thing, you notice I have my hair cut like a certain way, and like I don't like to change things around and mess things around. I eat the same thing every day. I do the same thing every day. You can basically either have a complicated personal life or a complicated business life. And understanding this, getting the asymmetry in, Archimedes said that give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum on which to place it and I'll move the world. And that basically is just a quote to denote the power of leverage and the power of power, basically. Finding things that you can put small amounts of time into to get the biggest reward, and then all you do is you repeat those over and over again. That's literally it. And if if you think about it, irresponsible to do anything but the thing that moves you closest towards your goal. And this is why having a big goal helps. If you're just in it to make money for yourself, you're not going to take this seriously. But if you feel like you've been put on this planet to solve a big problem or to solve an injustice, and it's no longer about you, it's about the empire, it's about a religion, it's about a problem, it's about something that you love and something that's near and dear to you, you'll start to take this way more seriously. So, yeah, bye.